Hey everyone, it's Cory McCarthy, and thank you for tuning into another live Q&A session. And again, I'm going to keep repeating this, but for those who are new among my viewership, I'll be doing these every other week, conceivably, unless something happens. But every other week, I will be doing these. So the next live Q&A session is going to be on November 26th. So 2 Sundays from now. So it'll be every Sunday around noon, every other Sunday around noon that I'll be doing this. The next one will be November 26th. So now that that's out of the way, let's pop over and have a look at some of the questions that I see people are already logging on. So let's have a look at some of the questions and get started. What do you do if you get hungry in the middle of exercising? Well, I mean, I drink a lot of water during exercise, and that can sometimes help mask hunger, even genuine hunger. And there is an old saying that sometimes what we mistake as being hunger is actually just thirst. So I would suggest you drink a lot of water during exercise, and maybe put in some carbohydrates in the water, put some aminos in the water, and consume that during exercise. And that might actually help with anabolism too. In fact, there's research that showed that could actually help with anabolism, those additional substances being added to the water. And then sip that throughout your workout. But I have a big ass, literally a big ass water jug that I drink from. It's like a big fucking 40-ounce plastic bottle, BPA free, that I drink from. And I don't have any problems with hunger during workout. You may also look into like how you're eating before your workout, not necessarily right before if you can't train on a full stomach, but in the hours before your workout. So make sure you've had enough nutrition that day, unless you are genuinely training fasted for some reason, like a morning session. Anyway, next question. Is there any way to get EPA and DHA algae supplements are expensive if you tend to take 2 grams approximately on a daily basis? You don't really need 2 grams of EPA DHA from what I've been reading. You need about 600 milligrams. I think 500 to 600 milligrams. I think even for women, it could be 250 milligrams a day of specifically EPA and DHA. You can get that from like Source Naturals makes an EPA DHA product. I use it actually. Comes in vegan gel caps that contain 600 milligrams per 2 gel caps. You can get a 30-day supply for about $20. Now that arguably isn't cheap for some people, but it's $20 for a month. It's not that bad. Otherwise, you're gonna have to rely on things like flax seeds, like ALA. Your body will convert it. It's just not as effective, as efficient as just taking it directly from algae. So you could get a couple grams of ALA per day. I mean, I still take about 2 grams, like about a tablespoon of flax seeds I grind up myself on top of the DHA algae supplement as well. And that will help you meet your needs. But yeah, ALA is a lot cheaper. You can get flax and chia seeds and hemp seeds. They all contain ALA. What should Cory, should I avoid overt fat sources if I consume massive amounts of carbohydrates? No, I mean, you need fat for health. I mean, at least 20% of your daily calories should be coming from fat. And I emphasize maintenance calories because that's what you need to maintain your body and your health. So 20% of what you would need maintenance calorie wise, even if you're eating under that. So let's say your maintenance calories are 2,500 a day, but you're cutting like say at 1,800 calories or something. You'd still want to eat 20% of 2,500 calories for your fat, despite eating 1,800 calories, because that's what your body would need to maintain health, to maintain your size, your strength, your health for your weight. So you shouldn't be skimping on fat just because you're eating more carbohydrates. That is a very vital macronutrient. You need it for health. What are your zinc level recommendations? I'm not sure what you mean. Do you mean like how much zinc you should have per day? Or like I'm not sure what you mean, or how you should get zinc. I mean, you can get it from diet. That you can even Google food sources that contain ample zinc. So you can get it from diet, or you can take like a ZMA supplement just to be safe before bed. Some people find that magnesium helps calm them a bit before they sleep. I actually find that works too. So I do consume a ZMA supplement before bed a lot of times because it does help. I do feel calmer for some reason with that. I don't know why. It could be a placebo effect. But yeah, I mean, you can find the daily recommended zinc amounts on Google. You can just Google it. You can also find foods that are vegan that contain zinc, and there are plenty of foods that are vegan that contain zinc. Anyway, next question. Is smoked food bad? For example, smoked tofu, smoked tempeh? I mean, there's people who claim that smoking food can release toxins into the food, but I mean, I don't see any particular problem. I need to research it more, to be honest with you, to give you a straight answer, but I personally don't see a big deal about it. Now, there might be something I don't know. I don't know everything, which is why I like to research, because if there's something I don't know, I want to know a little bit more about it. But in this case, I don't really know too much about that, but I have heard that. But I imagine if you eat it and, you know, you don't just eat nothing but smoked food, you should be fine. I know that smoked meat apparently releases toxins, but then again, meat contains toxins to begin with, so you know, that are bad for us, that are cancer causing, cancer promoting. Cory, do you always record every specific of your workouts? Make sure you know what to beat the following time. Yes. What I specifically record is the date, the exercises from that day, the amount of sets that I'm shooting for, the amount of reps that I'm shooting for, the weight that I used, and then the number of the reps I got per set. So if I was shooting for 3 sets of 8 to 12 at, you know, 100 pounds for some given exercise, I would note that on set 1 I got like 12 or 13. On set 2 I got like 10 or whatever, and then set 3 I got like 8 or 9. I would make sure I note that, and then that would help me determine what I'm going to use next week. So if I've gone up in weight, in other words, if I wanted 12 as max, but I got 13, I would, if it's dumbbells, I might, you know, not do anything, but if it's a barbell, I might add 5 pounds. You know, and then I'd also track to see if I didn't beat what I can beat next week. So if I got 12 that week, I try to go for 13 the next week. Constantly pushing for progress, and having a logbook is the best way to see that you're making that kind of progress. It's a good way to keep yourself honest and to challenge yourself, because ultimately you're not in the gym to beat other people unless you're a power lifter. You're not in the gym to beat other people. You're really there in competition with yourself. So it doesn't matter what Joe or Jack are pushing. You know, your name's actually Jack. I was totally going at random there, but it doesn't matter what they're pushing in the gym, what they might be benching, for instance. It matters what you're benching, and that you're beating that. You're trying to beat that. You're trying to improve that. So I hope that makes sense. Cory, how long are these Q&As? This is my first one of yours. They're typically an hour long. I typically go about an hour. Once every couple of weeks, every other Sunday. So the next one, as I was saying earlier, is going to be on the 26th. Cory, should I avoid? Oh, I already answered that question. Hey, Cory, what do you think of a raw vegan diet? There are a lot. I've been over this one a lot, but I'm going to put this out there again, just very briefly. In summary, I think that raw vegan diets are excessive. I think that a mixed diet, based on the research, is better. That means that smoked foods were necessary and raw foods were appropriate, like your fruits and nuts and seeds and things like that. And that is based on research. And if you look at my videos, you can find videos I've done on raw veganism. In fact, I actually am planning a new one because I saw some absurdity on Facebook that I need to address that I think is a real problem in the vegan world, and it's a sign of a mental illness. And it's not because veganism creates mental illness, and I'll be doing a video on this too. From what I've seen, veganism sort of attracts people with mental illness. That's the best way to put it, that there are people who come to it for various reasons, because they have some kind of a mental illness. But more on that when I do a video on the topic. I'm really having a hard time gaining weight, even though I work out 3 times per week and eat a lot of food. What do you recommend? Eat more food. If your workout is in check, if you actually are progressing with weights and you're pushing yourself, then you need to eat more food. You're obviously not eating enough food to get for your weight. I don't mean go on a seafood diet. I don't mean like seafood as in seafood, but seafood as in you see food and eat it. That's a joke for bodybuilders. But eat enough. Make sure you have enough calories. Bump it up like 500 calories per day. See what that does for you. You might actually need that extra calories. If you're the kind of person who might begin to put too much weight on, go up at 200 or something and see how that works. But since you're saying you're not really getting any progress, try 500 and see if that does something for you, since you are trying to bulk. But be mindful of the kind of weight you're putting on. Other than that, make sure you're sleeping too. If you're not getting enough sleep, that can be a serious problem for recovery and growth, and your hormones, which play into all of that. And another thing too is your hormones. Maybe if you are finding you have other symptoms of low testosterone, get that checked. and nip that shit in the ass right away before it becomes a serious problem for you. You know, if you have a medical problem, treat it. That's my advice for that. Okay, what are your favorite and best muscle damage exercises for back and quads? Now, when you say muscle damage, I assume you're referring to the mechanism of hypertrophy known as muscle damage. Now, for those who aren't aware, there are 3 mechanisms that we know about that contribute to hypertrophy, that are essential to hypertrophy. One of them is mechanical tension. That's heavy ass shit under tension, basically. It's so your squats, your bench press, deadlift, etc. That's mechanical tension. Muscle damage is when you overload a muscle under some kind of a stressor, like a stretch reflex. So for biceps, that could be incline curls. You're overloading the biceps under a stretch position, at least at the bottom of the movement. Depending on the movement you're looking at, but at the bottom of the movement, you're going to be in a stretch position. For quads, let's see, yeah, for back and quads. For quads, there's 2 things you can do for a stretch for the quads. One is sissy squats. It's really effective and really freaking painful. The name sissy squat, sissy doesn't really do it any justice at all because it's quite the opposite. And the other one would be if you do front squats, for instance. Sorry, not front squats, but Smith machine squats. The only time I really recommend Smith machine squats, and you put your feet far out in front of you, like far enough out in front of you that when you go down, you're kind of like bringing your ass almost totally to the ground. That's another way to give the quads a good stretch. And for back, any kind of real rowing movement where you let the bar hang, that will cause a stretch in the back as well, the lats. Also, pull-ups naturally cause a stretch. Chins can as well. Because your back is going to be in a stretch position at the top. You're stretching the lats out. But you're going to get more mid-back involvement and, so in other words, lower traps, middle traps, if you do rows. So if you want more overall stretch, do rows. Like barbell rows are a good one, especially from like, you know, standing up a little higher, like at a deficit, you know, you could really get a good stretch. Those are the best things. And then the third mechanism of hypertrophy, for those who want to know what the third one is metabolic stress. And that's caused by fast piston-like reps, high reps. You know, for instance, doing concentration curls for like 20+ reps would be metabolic stress. Usually use isolation movement for that. Has Richard Spencer gotten better recently compared to his LARPy days? Richard Spencer. For those who don't know, Richard Spencer is like the unofficial leader of the alt-right. I don't particularly like Richard Spencer. I don't think he's the best. I don't necessarily consider myself alt-right. People call me alt-right, but I don't really like to label myself that. I'm right-wing, but I'm not even that far in there. I'm the 30% in. I don't particularly care for Richard Spencer. I think that he's not great at debating. I think he's not a good leader for the alt-right, so to speak, for that reason, because he is very public. He speaks a lot, but he's not great at debating. And you know, to be a good leader of a movement, you have to be representing the movement even in debate. But anyway, I don't really want to get too much into politics here. Let's see what the next question is. Okay, shit, this thing just scrolled really fucking fast. Here we go. Tips for omega-3. You just sprout your, oh, somebody's telling somebody else what to do. I've been feeling low energy, bad digestion. I think my calories have been too low for too long. How do I get my calories back up without gaining too much fat? Do it slowly, especially if you're having digestive problems. You might want to consider taking a digestive enzyme to help you build those calories back up without causing yourself serious bloating problems. Because if your body has gotten used to lower calories for prolonged periods of time, you might find suddenly jumping in, like let's say you've been eating 1,800 calories and suddenly you just dive bomb into 3,000. Your body you might have indigestion problems. You might need to ease up to it. That might help you a bit. So go from 1,800 to like 20 to 2,000, sorry, then maybe like to 24, and maybe 26, 28, and hit 3,000. To give you an example, incrementally increase week by week by week until you hit the target you want to hit, and then just maintain that. And if you and really when it comes to weight gain, you know, watch your body, watch how your body responds. If you find that you're gaining too much weight at a particular calorie intake range, bring that down by a couple hundred for a week. See how that changes things. If you know the scale is sort of if you're gaining more instead of muscle than fat, if you basically are making more lean gains, and go by the mirror, go by the scale, go by body fat tests if you can, and then kind of sit around wherever you're getting the best results. But if you're getting too much body fat, then obviously you're eating too many calories and lower them a bit. But not too much, because you might end up going the opposite direction and losing weight. Gore says, hi, Corey. Hi, Gores. Let's see here. As for zinc per day, as I was saying, off the top of my head, I don't know off the top of my head. I guess I could pull a bottle out and find out. I have a vegan supplement here. It's a vegan multi. It says that 73% is 11 milligrams for an adult. So 100. I'm just gonna look here. 30 milligrams. So 15 milligrams is probably a daily RDA for zinc. Going by the bottles that I'm seeing here. So anyway, can I replace coffee with tea when fasting to control hunger? I just don't like coffee. Sure. Green tea can work fine. I do believe there are some intermittent fasting folks who do use green tea. There's also herbal coffee. I haven't used it myself, but apparently it's like a tea version of coffee. I don't know if that's because of taste or if it's because of caffeine content or what it is. Really, what you're looking for is that there's the flavonoids in coffee, which are great for health, and then there's the caffeine, which is good for controlling the hunger. I think the flavonoids also control the hunger too, but the caffeine definitely plays a role in controlling hunger. So, green tea does have caffeine in it. Is there anything that you disagree with Athlean X about, like exercises you said are bad? Example, chest flies. I personally like chest flies. Like using dumbbells for chest flies. I think there's a wrong way to do them, and I think there's a right way to do them. Chest flies are great because they promote muscle damage. They promote, you're basically overloading your muscle fibers in your pecs under stretch position. And chest flies are great for that. But one thing that you can learn from Arnold Schwarzenegger, and something that, this is a pure anecdote, but I found that it does feel better. When you come to the top of the movement in the flies, don't bring your hands together. Bring them to maybe like about right where you start to feel the contraction hit, like a bit apart. That's the best way to do it, because you keep a constant tension, a little more constant tension on the pecs that way. And Arnold would do it that way. He would bring his hands partly together, not all the way together, and then go back down to a deep stretch and back up again. But don't go too deep in a stretch that you actually tear something, but a deep enough stretch that you feel the stretch beginning to happen under tension. And control the weight, because bear in mind that if you are under stretch and you're on a weight bearing exercise under stretch and you're using too much weight and you can't control it, you could tear something. So, same thing with incline curls, pec flies, any of those. Be careful, because you are under tension in a stretch position. You should do a video refuting Jason Blahaw's nonsense about veganism. I didn't know he actually has spouted any new nonsense. I don't really watch his channel that much, really at all. I've caught maybe a few videos of his in the last like 5 months at most. But yeah, I don't know what he didn't seem to have anything against veganism before. He just didn't do it himself. But I don't remember him bashing vegans. But maybe something's changed. I don't know. Are peanuts a good protein source? I mean, they offer protein. That I wouldn't base your entire diet around peanuts. You'd get a hell of a lot of fat on top of that, but they are a valid source of protein. So I would say you go ahead and include peanuts in your diet. It's perfectly fine. You should exclusively consume them. Variety, will help you stick to your diet as well. And keep in mind, some foods are higher in some amino acids than others. It doesn't mean they're incomplete necessarily. It just means they have more of a particular amino acid than other foods. So it's good to have a variety so that you're getting a little bit of everything, or you can just eat a lot of soy too, because that's pretty much high in everything. It's really high in leucine. Will I ever be a guest on Virtue of the West? That's Tara's show. I don't know. It depends on if she wants me to come on. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it. It depends on what I have to say in the topic too, I guess. You know, if I'm just going to say something that's already been said, if it's not something that I have a lot of expertise in, it's not really a point in having me on just to have me on, you know. So I've had a blood test recently. My testosterone was in the 400 range. I can't remember the units, but it's supposed to be normal. I put a lot of muscle, and I can't lose fat easily. I need to cut and do a lot of cardio, but I feel like I should do it to improve. All the values are great. 400 is in healthy range. The bottom of healthy range is 270 nanograms per deciliter. So even if you were 400, you're a good 130 nanograms per deciliter over what is considered the bottom acceptable number. Did you have your other levels checked? Did you like see what your SHBG was? Did you, you know, what's your free testosterone? When it comes down to it, building muscle, as I've explained in even my recent video, is no different for somebody who would be at 270 than for somebody at 1,070 nanograms per deciliter. There's no real difference, no distinguishable difference. Now, where there is a difference is fat loss. So it would make sense why you'd have a slower time losing fat at where you're at compared to somebody who has like 1,070 nanograms. Now, the reason I asked about your SHBG is because sex hormone binding globulin, it can actually, what it does is it binds to the testosterone, so it makes it unavailable. It's not bioavailable for your body to use for muscle building, fat loss, etc. So you can try to find ways to watch my recent video, try to find natural ways to try to bump those numbers down. See, SHBG is one of those kind of things you want to be lower. You know, it's like cortisol. You don't want it to be higher. Testosterone, you want it to be higher. GH, you want it to be higher. SHBG, you want to be lower. So find ways to bring those numbers down. That's the best thing I can advise. And there's lifestyle factors that can help you bring it down. And there's even herbs that have been shown that might help you bring it down significantly. But that is if that's a problem. So check and see if you can get your SHBG checked, or it might actually be in the testosterone test. A lot of times your hormone panel test will include SHBG, growth hormone, various estrogens, IGF-1, etc. So you can look there and see. Let's see here. Any other rich non-legume sources for plant-based protein? I mean, I think quinoa might be considered. I think it's considered a grain. Is a great protein-rich source of food. I mean, there's also wheat gluten, or seitan actually is what it's referred to as when it's in its, you know, prepared form. If you're not allergic to gluten or wheat or whatever, there you go. That's an option right there. You know, you'll find protein in everything. If you look at a banana, it's got almost 2 grams of protein. Look at broccoli, it's got around 5 to 8 grams per cup. Spinach has got pretty high amounts of protein. People don't really consider this, but when I always inform people, like if you look at my book, Beast Mode by Science, I inform people to look at all the foods as a whole. I mean, that's what I tell clients as well. It's like, look at all the foods you're eating as a whole. You might be surprised how much protein you're actually getting. You shouldn't just count what's in tofu, for instance, but also look what you're getting from fruit, what you're getting from the vegetables you're eating. Because you might find suddenly there's like 20 grams of protein right there you didn't even account for, coming from those sources of food. I've been vegan for a couple of years, and I've always supplemented with B12, D3, and Source Naturals, EPA, DHA, and I'm around 20 to 25% body fat for your info. 20% is like the top end of what would be considered healthy by most medical practitioners. I would, if you're looking for aesthetics, general aesthetics, I would say get yourself down to about 12 to 15%. 12% has been found to be most attractive to women, and I'm talking about, that's a pretty large body of women who have found 12% to be attractive. So maybe if that's your goal, that's a place to get down to. But for pure health, between 10 and 20% is fine for health, according to the medical community. What are my thoughts on porn? I've said it before about porn that I think that there are psychological impacts to using porn. It makes women and sex seem more available and easier to get, and you might be less likely to leave the house and actually try to obtain a partner. It can also cause people to develop particular needs, like that. In other words, they won't be able to get off have an orgasm with a girl because maybe they have some freaky ass shit they've gotten into because of porn. Like, for instance, they might require the girl to like cut them with a knife or something to get off. Believe there's some weird shit out there, or maybe shit on them or something. Like, there's some weird ass shit out there. So porn can affect you psychologically, and that can affect your performance in bed with a significant other, which can affect your sex life. It can affect. There are men who might have trouble with having an orgasm with something other than their hand. You know, these are, and that could just come from masturbation, but porn has a lot of psychological effects that are becoming more and more understood than they were before. So I don't recommend porn because it can do a lot to you psychologically and even have physical impacts. So did you see UFC Norfolk last night, and what did you think? No, I didn't. I don't really watch a lot of sport, even the UFC. I don't really catch a lot of, I don't really follow sport too much, to be honest with you. Occasionally I'll catch something, but I don't really go out of my way to look at it. Yeah, so what do I think about supplementing glycine as a vegan? I don't really see any need for you to supplement glycine. I mean, it can help with sleep. It's been shown to actually improve sleep quality, but other than that, I mean, you can get it from your diet. Your body, you can still get it from diet. You may not get a hell of a lot of it, but it's like with some other things like carnitine, for instance. You can get it from a vegan diet. Your body can get it from a vegan diet, but you're not going to get as much as you would from eating meat. So then you might want to supplement if it's causing you a problem, if you have a deficiency. And that really you won't notice until you're trying to lose weight, really. People find that sometimes they optimize fat loss by improving their carnitine intake. Supplement. That's the only time carnitine actually works in supplement form. Except that there has been some research to show that carnitine can open up receptor sites to hormones on your muscles, so you might be able to better use free testosterone. It has been shown in at least a couple studies to do that. So there is some other value to carnitine, but it's a very specific kind of carnitine. Hey, Cory, do you still take taurine, tyrosine, glutamine, GABA, and leucine? I mean, occasionally I'll take those. Glutamine, no. Years ago, I stopped taking direct glutamine supplements, and I did a video about this about 2 years ago. I did a video about this, maybe 3 years at this point, because glutamine was found to blunt protein synthesis. It actually blunted mTOR. So I stopped taking glutamine at that point in time because I found that was going to inhibit me being able to build muscle properly. From what the research was showing. And frankly, I'm getting glutamine from diet anyway. And when I take a protein powder, there's glutamine in that. So I'm still getting glutamine. I'm just not taking excess glutamine. But I mean, the rest of them, occasionally I might take tyrosine if I'm trying to, you know, cut, because it is a precursor to adrenaline. I believe it's adrenaline. It's a precursor to some fat loss hormones in the body. Thyroid hormones, tyrosine is. It's a building block for them. So occasionally when I'm cutting, I will maybe bump my tyrosine supplementation up for a period of time to see if it has any effect on my fat loss. Taurine, again, it's not necessary, but you can take it. GABA I take every night because it does help with sleep. Leucine I'll take if I'm cutting, you know, because it is a good amino acid to help spark protein synthesis, to help reduce muscle breakdown. So I will take that when I'm cutting. And there's been some benefit to taking BCAAs and leucine as a vegan as well. They find that it can help improve protein synthesis as a vegan. And I explain this in my book also. But you can get it from diet. If you're eating a lot of soy, you're getting plenty of leucine from diet too. Let's see here. So would you would even recommend 20-something-year-old to take TRT if his T is at or below 270? That is up to your doctor. I would recommend that if you're not at 270, but below 270, if your testosterone falls below normal range, I don't care what age you are, that is a medical problem. You need to speak to your doctor and ask about TRT, because if this is something that isn't going to improve itself by some means, maybe you have a medical condition that's causing you to lower your testosterone. Maybe you're on a drug that's causing you to lower your testosterone, and by going off that drug, like an antidepressant or something, if you're able to go off that drug, That's the problem with drugs, that you know, you get on them for one reason and they cause other problems, and you have to then attack those problems, and that causes other problems. That's why I try to stay away from drugs wherever I can and do anything naturally that I possibly can, because you know, you end up just basically trying to bandage everything, and there's a root cause to it all that you can go back down and find that's causing a domino effect. So yeah, I mean, I would say that if somebody's in their 20s and they're having low testosterone symptoms and their T is below 270, to talk to their doctor about it. That's important. That's a medical problem. And there are 20-somethings that are on TRT, not because they took steroids, because they had a medical problem that caused them up below. Well, one of them had a drug problem. You know, they were taking a lot of drugs. They went through an addiction phase, not steroids, but like, you know, I think heroin or something. They went through an addiction phase, and it caused their testosterone to crash. And now they are on TRT, and they're like 26, 27 years old. Hey, Cory, I'm currently at a plateau for bench press. Have you got any tips for breaking it? Take a week off, see if that does something. Improve your triceps work, see if that does something, like throw in close grip bench, throw in other forms of bench pressing, like bench pressing from the floor presses, using blocks or even phone books to work just a certain range of the movement, or use the pins, the safety pins in a squat rack for the same purpose, to truncate the movement and work a different part of the movement. Kind of like if your deadlifts suck or you need to improve them, you can try doing rack pulls to improve deadlift. But like I said, work your triceps too. Get strong triceps. That can help, because triceps are part of the movement. Strengthen your front delts. They're part of the movement as well. Try dipping. These are all things you can do to help improve your bench press. Believe it or not, I mean, now this is purely anecdote, but I have a friend who is a natural and has a fucking insane bench press. It's a fucking insane bench press. He's at my gym, and he built his up by supplementing his benching work with machine chest work and triceps work. And he swears by using the Hammer strength machine as a supplemental machine. Got really strong on that as well. Worked on his triceps work as well. Do a lot of push downs, one arm push downs. And then his bench improved with that as well. You know, try programs like 5-3-1, try programs like 5x5, like the strong lifts, even just for your bench, and then do bodybuilding work on the side if you're into size. And then if you feel like you're at a plateau, from benching at least, not from everything, but at least benching, or maybe go on vacation for a week and just go off the gym altogether for 1 week, but continue to eat. And then when you come back, you might find your strength will not have plateaued anymore, and you're going up again, even a little bit. Sometimes that little break from the gym can mean a big difference. Those are just some tips that might help you with improving your bench. Tips for bulking on a vegan diet: eat plenty of food. I mean, it's the same thing I would tell somebody who is not a vegan. Eat enough calories to bulk, really, and make sure you're lifting, you're getting enough sleep, you're lifting with good form, you're lifting with progressive overload. You know, you're constantly trying to improve, and you should build. Hormonal problem, and then you want to get that checked out and nipped in the ass. Cory, do you ever come off ketogenesis? Is MCT oil worth buying? I'm not even ketogenic right now. I don't use ketogenic diets all that often. I mean, I'll run them now and then to change things up a little bit for myself, but I don't often run them. Right now, I'm just on standard intermittent fasting like usual with carbohydrates, fruit and shit. But MCT oil, I mean, they've shown a minor influence of like coconut oil and MCT oil on an energy and fat loss, but it's like so minor that it might not even really be worth it. But there are people who swear by it. There's a lot of anecdote on the matter, but I just don't. I mean, for me, when I'm on ketogenic diet, I use things like coconut oil or MCT oil because they might help me get a little extra fat in there without hindering my carbohydrate intake, for instance. So sometimes I'll use an oil to do that, whereas if I ate a coconut, I might overdo my carbohydrates. What are my views on marijuana to avoid it? there are studies that show no effect, for instance, on testosterone for marijuana, and then there's studies that show that it can lower testosterone. You know, any benefit you probably can procure from marijuana, you can probably procure from something else. You know, now there's things that are worse than marijuana. So I don't particularly I'm not offended by marijuana, but for me personally, I wouldn't do it because of the potential to lower testosterone. And any benefits I probably could get from something else. Like, it's the same thing with alcohol. Alcohol has such a negative impact on hormone levels and protein synthesis that any benefit that alcohol might provide from like mineral intake, I can get from like a multivitamin or just from my diet, you know, without the drawback on my hormones. So it really comes down to, what are you getting from it, really? What are you getting from it, and what are the drawbacks? And is there something else that you can get those same benefits from without the drawbacks? That's my thoughts on that. I watched the video on testosterone, as I do with all your videos. The only doubt I had is that it's too difficult to lose fat in that range, despite the amount of muscle mass I put on. Continues. Also, can creatine help with fat loss as well? I've seen no evidence that creatine has any effect on fat loss. It has some effect on strength, some effect on DHT, some effect on muscle mass, some effect on myostatin, but I've seen absolutely no. It has effect on cognitive abilities too. Can actually improve cognition in vegans, but I've seen no effect on fat loss from creatine. Anyway, so yeah, he was just saying he understands why it's so difficult for him to lose fat at his range. Yes, testosterone in the healthy range, doesn't matter where you are in the healthy range, you can build muscle just the same, but fat loss is worse for those who are lower in healthy range than those that are higher. Thoughts on how to source omega-3 DHA on a vegan diet. Also, do you meditate? I don't meditate enough. I'd like to meditate more. It's very beneficial. They've actually shown it can actually fight some forms of cancer. It's incredible. But no, I don't meditate enough. As for DHA, algae is a good source. Very specific question is, I'm a vegan guitarist just like you. I know that some glues and other stuff in guitars may be animal-based. What should a vegan guitarist buy as a cruelty-free equipment? You have to ask a lot of questions. It's not just glues. It can also be ivory, bone. Believe it or not, ivory, even though it's considered a controlled item, a controlled product. Abalone, which comes from, you know, I mean, pearl, sorry, comes from clams and whatnot. There are a lot of things that you can find in guitars that are, and musical instruments a lot of times that are derived from animals. You really have to do the best you possibly can. You can ask where they source certain things from. I have guitars that have synthetic parts. I also buy a lot of guitars that are secondhand. They've been around since like the 80s and earlier. And you know, a lot of times people will say, well, secondhand's a little different because you're not directly paying for the product from the source. You have to ask questions. You might have to, you know, get things custom made. That's the best thing I can recommend. It's very difficult. It is very difficult. And I'm sure some of my instruments that I have do have an animal component. I believe I'm pretty sure my Les Paul has my 335 and my Les Paul probably both have pearl, mother of pearl inlays, because they were high-end instruments, but I got them before I was vegan. So there is that gray area that, like they say, that if you've had something from before you were vegan, you know, it doesn't really count as paying for cruelty now. So that's something to consider also. But yeah, ask around. With the rise of popularity of veganism, there are a lot of companies, and sometimes just to cut costs and cut corners in costs, they'll make instruments with synthetic parts because it's just cheaper. You know, mother of pearl is expensive, so they'll use fake inlays, or, you know, bone is expensive, so they'll use like a plastic or an ebony or something, you know, and replace it with that graphite sometimes as well. I've seen that. You know, just ask questions and do the very best you possibly can. Veganism is about doing the best you possibly can. You know. So yeah. Cory, hello. I've been concerned with a condition called manganism, which may occur as a result of imbalance of abundance of manganese in the diet. There are evidence it may cause Parkinson's syndrome. What do you do if you get? I don't even. I don't do. Talk to a doctor. I'm not. I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, man. I'm not a medical practitioner. I don't want to steer you wrong. You know, I talk to a medical doctor. What you should do. Anyway, Cory, how do I fix my circadian rhythm? I've been sleeping from 5 a.m. to 2 p.m. the last 2 weeks, and I can't get back to normal. You're going to have to try to force yourself to get back to normal. It's kind of like how you adjust to a new time zone. I find melatonin helps. There have been research to show that melatonin can help with jet lag, for instance. So you might find that it helps you get acquainted to a better sleep schedule. I mean, I've been there, and I just did it by forcing myself to go to bed at a different time. I mean, when I was in college, I was a night owl. I sometimes would be up till 5, 6 a.m., saw the sun rise, and I would go to bed and sleep till like 2 or 3 p.m. You know, I was pulling all-nighters a lot. But now what I've done is I've forced myself to get in bed around midnight, you know, and then of course, I get like, you know, about 7 to 8 hours sleep from that. But yeah, melatonin might help you with that. Thoughts on optimal sodium intake and if excessive sodium is really a problem or not. It can be a real problem, you know, especially for people who have a heart condition to begin with. But you can look up online what, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's like 1,200 milligrams, what the optimal sodium needs are per day, where you should cap at, basically. You can look that up online. Now, there are conditions where there's people who literally, their bodies expel sodium at a higher rate than other people. They just expel a lot of salt when they sweat. You might, if you're one of them, you might need a little more. But look up to see what the recommended intake is. I like your thoughts on MCT oil. I'm so tired of hearing people claim it's such an amazing thing. A lot of people will claim that something is the next big thing, but the research might show that it has a minor effect, but it's not a significant enough effect to call it like, you know, this power food. I hate that word. You'll hear like superfoods, power foods, etc. It's like, fuck. I mean, there's always some new damn food or berry or something they're calling a freaking power food. It's really annoying, actually. How many days do I work out? Currently, I'm in the gym 4 days a week. But that can change. Sometimes it's 5 days. Sometimes it's 3 days. Depends on what I'm doing. Right now, it's currently 4 days per week. Let's see here. Someone, and she felt, I don't know what they're, okay, I'm going to pass that because I know what they're talking about. Why do vegans have the lowest BMI compared to other diets? I think it's because, sadly enough, there's a number of factors, really. One is, I think, sadly enough, as I was saying earlier, a lot of people with mental problems are attracted to veganism. For instance, social justice warriors will be attracted to veganism because it will add one more thing to their repertoire that they can cry oppression about. They use it as a way to feel superior to other people. You know, it's like, oh, I'm a vegan, you're not a vegan, I'm fucking better than you, or, you know, and pound their chest and all of that, which is not really a way to promote the movement. But I think there are some people who are mentally ill and they use it as a way to feel elite compared to other people. They have problems in their own lives. They have no control in their own lives. So they like to try to put things over other people's heads instead of going into it for something genuine. I'm not saying there isn't a moral, I'm not saying that there isn't a moral aspect of veganism in the sense that, yes, people who are vegan are technically morally better than people who aren't. But to go and boast about it, it's not helping anybody. But then there's people also who come to veganism who have eating disorders, and they can mask those eating disorders with a vegan diet. And these are people who might give us a bad name for having such low BMI. These are the people who fall for these fad diets, like eat, you know, just fruit or eat only raw foods, and they just, the problem is a lot of these foods, like fruit, for instance, and vegetables, they're high in fiber, lower in calories, so you can eat a fuckload of them but still be pretty low in your calorie intake and look malnourished and have a low BMI. you know? But then the other side of it could be too that a lot of vegans are more mindful of their diet. So rather compared to your average Westerner. So more vegans might be more mindful of health. Like, you know, they're not skimping on anything, but they're more mindful of like their calorie intake, the kinds of foods they're eating, and they're going to have a naturally lower BMI for that reason. Not necessarily an unhealthy BMI, but a lower BMI than your average person. Keep in mind, right now, most people are overweight or obese. So the average BMI is actually pretty damn high. So even if you're in the healthy range of BMI as a vegan, you're still probably going to stand out as being skinnier than your average person in the West. But BMI is not all that useful when you take into consideration your lifestyle. For instance, athletes, bodybuilders in particular, are going to have a higher BMI by virtue of their muscle mass. So in that case, lean body mass and body fat percentage are better markers of health than going by BMI, because, you know, somebody could be technically obese by BMI standards. I think I actually fall in the obese standard, like 27 or 28 for BMI, but it's mostly muscle. You know, you put me next to somebody who's just your average 27, 28 BMI person, we look totally different. BMI is kind of useless in some ways. When you get to parties, you don't drink beer? No, I don't. Come on, Cory, where's the fun at that? I can have fun without drinking. I don't need to drink alcohol to have fun. And if I have friends that require me to drink alcohol to have fun, then I need to take a better, closer look at my friends and make better decisions in life. You know, if you need alcohol to have fun, then maybe you're just not a very fun person. Or maybe you're with people who aren't very fun. You need to reassess your life a little bit. You don't need to get inebriated to have fun. Think about that. I mean, how can you remember what kind of fun you even had? I mean, literally, if you go to a party and you get yourself fucking hammered, you're not going to remember probably half the shit you did at the party. It's going to be an alcoholic haze. So how, you know, if I'm going to experience something, I want to remember the experience. And also, there's just the fact of making a complete and utter fucking ass of yourself. And people, there are your quiet drunks and your loud drunks. And some people just, they tend to make an ass of themselves. And you can lose friends that way too. Why did I quit drinking? I never did drink in the first place. I mean, I've tasted alcohol before. I never cared for it, but I've never been a drinker. I've never had that kind of lifestyle. Never lived that kind of lifestyle. So that never really applied to me. Yeah, that's my answer to that. On vegan diet is, oh, somebody's saying it's relatively easy to get to OD on manganese. Yeah, it is. Just, you know, watch what you eat. But I would definitely speak to a doctor, you know, about that as well if you have a genuine problem. I mean, they can advise you, or even go on Google and find out foods that are a little lower in manganese and base a diet around that. But definitely talk to a doctor. I don't like touching medical stuff like that because I am not qualified to do that. I can give you my opinion, but I'm not a medical doctor, and I don't want you to hurt yourself because I told you to do something. And I mean, I would feel bad about that. So don't, you know, always consult, run by medical questions with a certified practitioner. Always, 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 always. Let's see here. Somebody says the secondhand argument about buying an instrument secondhand is an appeal to futility fallacy. You know, you can, like I said, it's very difficult, but you can inquire about what instruments are available that don't have animal components. But from what I understand, even things like glass contain animal components, like everyday things we use. It's technically impossible to avoid all animal components, but you can do the best you can, because musical instruments are, in fact, you know, unless it's your career, are in fact a luxury. They're not a requirement for life. So do everything you possibly can to get a cruelty-free instrument. I know that violinists, for instance, use synthetic bows. They don't buy the horsehair bows. They use synthetic bows. So you can find synthetic products. A lot of times the more affordable ones are the ones that contain the synthetic products, because, like I said, some elements like pearl, like bone, are very expensive. So they're going to use a synthetic item in its place. So yeah, ask around. And I can't even tell you what brand really, because you can even find it within the same brand. Like you can go to and find like an Ibanez guitar, for instance, that has no animal components. Then you'll find another Ibanez guitar that does. And it's the same thing with Gibson, but the higher end brands tend to have those animal components, because sometimes they're considered a luxury, like having pearl or whatever inlays. It makes it look pretty, makes it look high end and nice, and you know. So ask questions. Ask questions. If you can't get a straight answer from a dealer, call the manufacturer and ask them. That's my advice for that. Anyway, but my second comment, the reason I said that is because I have heard there are some vegans that acceptable to get things secondhand if you don't have another choice. Like if there's not another option for you, and you can go for a secondhand item. But that really, it's vegan to vegan here. You know, it depends on the vegan you're talking about. I know, for instance, for me, I don't wear wool. I don't care if it's old wool. I don't care if it's secondhand wool, you know, something that I previously had or something that is secondhand on a store shelf. I don't buy it. I don't wear it. I don't feel right wearing it. But anyway, it depends on your sentiments, and just ask questions. But yeah, I have a number of guitars. In fact, a lot of my guitars I bought before I was vegan. You know, I've been playing guitar for a long time. A lot of my guitars I bought before I was vegan, and a number of them do contain, I think at least a couple of them definitely contain mother of pearl. I would be certain of it because they're high end. I mean, they might be fake for all I know, but it's a Les Paul, for fuck's sakes. It probably is actually mother of pearl. Anyway, and I'm sure the nut is bone. I'm pretty damn sure it is, because I don't think Gibson uses anything but bone in their higher end products. Anyway, moving along. How much caffeine do I have per day? I tend to have a few glasses of coffee a day during my fasting period. So I guess like if it's 200 milligrams or 125 milligrams, it's between 100 and 200 milligrams per cup, depending on the actual coffee source. Yeah, I mean, so I guess between 300 and 600 milligrams of coffee a day is what I tend to, caffeine a day is what I tend to get. Let's see. I once had low blood pressure after no sodium diet for half a year. This is my call to eat more sodium. You need, I mean, sodium does have a purpose. There is a recommended amount of sodium per day that you need from diet, or by some means. So, you know, you can't just cut sodium out altogether unless your doctor is telling you to do so for some urgent reason. And then I don't think it'll be something you do prolonged. You'd probably cut it out until you recover from a certain urgent crisis, and then you'd come back to sodium again, just your healthy amount of sodium per day. Thoughts on my protein vegan products? I watched the Q&A where you recommend creatine monohydrate, and that's what I want to get, but I only have a student budget at the moment. My protein's fine. It's another one of those bulk companies. I personally am an affiliate of True Nutrition. If you look down in the description of my the comment section of my video description area, I have a link to my True Nutrition. You can get a 5% discount. I am affiliated with them. I use them almost exclusively, except where there's just products they don't sell that are vegan. And they have a big vegan supply. And the great thing about things like My Protein and True Nutrition is it's bulk. You know, you can buy something in bulk and pay less and get more. You know, it doesn't always taste so great because some bulk powders taste like shit, but you're paying less money. You just kind of deal with it, you know. And if you're a student, that's certainly but creatine doesn't have a flavor. It doesn't have a flavor at all. It's to me at least, it's flavorless. A little gritty monohydrate is, but it's flavorless. But yeah, I mean it's good for a bulk site. I think True Nutrition takes the prize though, because they have a custom blend generator where you can go in and mix your own protein blends. You know, for instance, if you want to have a certain percentage of pea, hemp, or soy, or whatever, you can go in there and actually mix your own protein blend to your specifications in their generator and add whatever flavors you want and additional things like BCAAs to it, or enzymes to it, or whatever, to the mix, and you can create your own blend. Um, what is your opinion on keeping free-range chickens and eating the eggs? As I've said before about that, is it still a form of exploitation? Vegans are trying our best not to view animals as a commodity, to reject them as a commodity. And so by having them at your house and having free-range chickens and consuming their eggs, which they themselves can consume, by the way, that is viewing them as a commodity. They're essentially working for you, and so vegans reject that. Now, is it arguably better than a factory farm condition and buying your eggs in the store? I mean, yeah, I guess there's different levels of bad, but it's still considered viewing an animal as a commodity, and vegans reject that. So that's my thoughts on that from the vegan standpoint. I noticed a slight heart pain and weakness in the calves, which are two major symptoms. I don't know what the hell this person's talking about. I have to scroll back up, but there's so many comments here to get through. Let's see here. I'm trying to get past some of the repeat questions. Because some of these, like the stuff on lysine, carnitine, and carnosine, and things like that, I've answered before. Cramps in general in your muscles can be a sign of electrolyte deficiencies. You can try to have more potassium, like consume bananas. That might help you with cramping. I've heard some people say that taurine can help mitigate cramps. Again, that's entirely anecdote. I don't think I've ever tried it for cramps myself, but electrolytes can be a problem. So you might have a potassium problem if you're finding your muscles are cramping up too much. Maybe a magnesium problem even. So look at your intake for those two things and see if they're off. That's a thought. Or talk to a doctor, really. Do I recommend yoga in regards to posture? There is a lot of benefits to yoga. I mean, I've done yoga before, and it's great for flexibility, and it's a great complement to the martial arts. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, posture, I'd imagine, yeah, I guess it could help posture. Lifting weights will help posture. I mean, when I had what they call upper cross syndrome, which I developed from years and years of slouching in chairs, I was told to work my back twice more per week than my chest, to work on strengthening those back muscles more, and even over strengthening them to help improve my posture. And within a few months, upper cross went away. There you go. So I'm sure yoga has benefits in that, yes. Can you feed a cat a meat-free diet, or is that bad for my cat? My cat likes avocados. Well, first of all, I don't know if avocados are even healthy for a cat. Understand that some foods that humans can eat are toxic to animals. For instance, chocolate is toxic to dogs and cats. I learned through my parents, actually, because my parents made a mistake. They had been feeding their dog grapes. Their dog loved grapes. And then one day the dog got violently ill. And they took it to the vet, and they found that it was because they had been feeding it a lot of grapes. The dog had to be given charcoal, and they were told never to feed the dog grapes again. So I don't know if avocados are even safe for a cat, whether they like them or not. Look, my parents' dog liked grapes. Doesn't mean obviously those grapes weren't good for the dog. So look into that. First of all, look into whether your cat can even eat avocados safely. Second, yes, a cat can be fed a meat-free diet. They are obligate carnivores in the sense that they need to get taurine, which is found in the meat products they eat. But you can use a synthetic. There are fortified cat foods, and that's how it works. They fortify. Now, monitor how your cat does on it. I've heard there are some cats that just cannot assimilate the taurine, from the synthetic form, and these cats do require a meat-based diet. But then there are other cats that do fine on it. So don't kill your animal, but see what happens. I mean, give it a go, I guess. And if they're getting sick, fucking stop it immediately. Immediately. Don't do anything that's going to hurt your animal. And I do hope it's a rescue cat. I am not one to recommend purchasing animals from breeders or from stores that commodify them. only from rescue type situations, adoption type situations. Now, I have purchased animals from stores before because I deemed it a rescue situation. Like, for instance, I saw animals that were being neglected and abused and near death. In this case, they were birds, at a PetSmart, actually. And I purchased a couple of these birds that were near death, literally near death, and nursed them back to health, and they live vibrant, happy lives that they would otherwise not have lived. I'm going to take one more question because it's getting on the hour mark, and I've got to take care of some other business today. So let's just go randomly down really quick and find something. So, do you think it's natural for people to put on a little weight during the winter and colder months? Is there any way to prevent this even while on a healthy diet? Yes, you can prevent it. It's about your calorie intake. But there is definitely probably, at least in Europeans, and understand that, and this gets a lot of shit, but races are biologically different based on where we come from. Europeans come from colder climates. We've evolved in colder climates. So if people like Europeans or like Eskimos, for instance, or like even East Asians, for instance, might tend to put on a little more weight in the winter, their body might tend to do that when it's colder, who has African heritage. And might even hold their weight differently too, because you might notice that maybe more in the midsection region to protect those organs from the cold. That is definitely a possibility there. But again, like, it really depends on your ancestry in a lot of ways too, and how that plays in your genetics today. So, yeah. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna make that the last question at this point. I'll see you guys again for the next Q&A. It's going to be on November 26th, probably around noon, like usual, on Sunday, November 26th. So I'll see you guys there. Thank you guys for tuning in. Check out the description below if you want to find links to my ebook, links to my Patreon, links to my True Nutrition profile and all that. They're all down there below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.